wondering, you know, how powerful is that? It actually is very powerful for such a small animal. Female devil, getting to around 9 kilograms, has the same bite force as your average dog. Your average dog is about 4 to 5 times her weight. So, you know, quite a ravenous feeder. Sure, you can imagine, you know, eating 25 kilos in around 30 minutes. You're not going to want to share too much. More or less is everyone for themselves. So they will consume absolutely everything on a carcass. You might notice they're trying to get to the sort of internal organs, the nice chunky bits first. Push comes to shove, they will eat absolutely everything, whether it be fur, bone, eyes, claws, internal organs. They consume the lot. Nothing goes to waste. Even things like echidna quills have been found in devil's scats. You can imagine an echidna would not be the easiest thing in the world to consume. They do have enzymes in their stomachs. They are capable of consuming just about all diseased flesh as well. So pretty important sort of garbage disposal unit for the environment. Unfortunately, they are not very numerous anymore. They have dropped in number, like I was saying in the beginning there. So primarily due to something called DFTD, devil facial tumour disease. What that is a unique form of transmissible cancer. It's actually spread through biting and interaction or blood-on-blood contact. It is a tumour that does occur on the face, restricts devils from being able to eat or drink water. So it grows from one cancer cell to be so large they can no longer eat or drink. So it is pretty terrible. We don't know what has actually caused it. What we do know, it's a mutation. One devil mutated and wiped out 100,000 devils. So yeah, we're not going to know what actually caused it, but we do have a few theories. So one of them is perhaps they have tried to adapt to overcome the poison baits that were left out for them, leading to that mutation. So it is quite unlikely, but the reason that theory is out there is because with this DFTD, devils have actually been able to build their own resistance towards this contagious cancer in that sort of 26 to 27 years. So yeah, they've been able to build a resistance over that short period of time, which shows they are able to change their genetics and to be quite adaptable and persistent. So yeah, that theory is out there. The more likely one is possibly an inbred population over on the northeast. Perhaps they've sort of been isolated by, you know, a fence being put up or something like that. They've started to breed, but they believe it did originate over on the northeast of Tasmania. In some areas of the state around that northeast, 98% of devils were wiped out. So the genetic makeup became pretty terrible. The diversity really wasn't there. Luckily, we did find some populations which is unaffected by DFTD, had not been touched. So over on the southwest is the last sort of dense population of devil we do have here in Tasmania, and luckily enough, it does have that genetic diversity intact. We've been able to draw from that to replenish it to some extent. It's been sort of taken into captivity bloodlines, back out into the wild, of course, and also onto the safe haven of Mariah Island. That vocalisation there, guys, is the nicest one out of the 11. That one there is like personal space, mine, my food. That's the nicest one. That little ch-ch-ch. So 11 vocalisations all up, so quite the cacophony of sort of vocalisations. Reason being, like I was saying, sort of scary bite force, terrible vision, quite a rapid heart rate, and yeah, being that black animal, they've sort of worked out, you know. They have scary jaws, being a devil as well. They are fairly intelligent despite the small brain size. So the reason they have quite a small brain is because they're made for that bite force. 40% of their actual body mass is their head and their neck. So, you know, made for destroying things.
So these ones here, they're the ones that James had adapted, or these ones that were infected?
These ones were never infected in the first place. What you're seeing here is the captivity breeding programs. Yeah, so there's two different sorts of these captivity breeding programs. This one here is basically just breeding the numbers of the Tasmanian devil, perhaps to get them for wild release at some stage, but it's not really known. It's more of a sort of safe population that's not going to get wiped out. So ensuring that they survive in one shape or form. The other one is free-range facility breeding programs. We do have one of those here on site. Essentially, it's an enclosure which is replicating the wild. So, you know, it has the fence up, but everything else is pretty much wild. Sure, we put food down there to make sure they are getting plenty of food, but they exist in an environment which has everything the Tasmanian environment does have, except for tiger snakes. Tiger snakes is the one thing we do not put in there because they are venomous and they may kill the devil. Everything else does exist down there, so you know, blue tongues, wallabies, kangaroos, possums, echidnas, you name it, all exist down there. So replicating the wild, keeping some of those natural behaviours. So
Well, when they kill, do they just do they do work individually, or would
they are a solitary creature. It's very rare a Tasmanian devil will actually hunt. In the early settler days, they were actually thought to be killing things as large as cows on their own. So hunting things that large on their own has sort of been proven wrong. They're very unwilling to hunt, especially on a day like today. They're just not going to do it. If they are going to do it, it's usually a younger devil on a cooler day, and it's smaller things like frogs, insects, lizards. The largest that has ever been recorded roughly goes off around 2 times the devil's size. So you know, those Cape Barren geese, those grey birds with bright green beaks, those guys over there, that's all that's really being recorded out in the wild anyway. In captivity, they learn to associate us with food. You know, eating so much food and seeing humans, they learn to go food time basically. So you then get those dominant personalities you would see out in the wild becoming ferocious and crazy in captivity. You get ones like Lucifer, Dennis the Menace here at the park, literally just see as a big chunk of steak. You know, no matter what size you are, you're food. So it does vary. Out in the wild, they're going to see us. Sure, you can imagine us seeing a bear at night time, so that big moving silhouette. We're going to be very much frightened and running away pretty quickly. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is like for a Tasmanian devil to see us out in the wild. You do get a few a little bit more curious, you know, poke their head out a little bit more, a bit of a sniff around, but they're not going to come out of the bushes, out of their sort of where they feel safe, their comfort zone.
Is this one always the hardest one?
No, they all are different in personality. Being this young age, we haven't really been able to determine exactly what the personalities are, but out of this bunch, there's 3 that are quite confident. They come out and they'll eat out of your hand, that sort of stuff. The others, it takes a lot more of that sort of, you know, fast-acting metabolism, get a little bit hungrier, and then they come out. Being that gorge feeder, they can't afford to be too fussy or shy for long. So in captivity, basically, you know, if you're not feeding them, all the devils are going to be out. They're always going to be ready to eat. They're going to be sort of this hierarchy around food. You know, if someone's not getting enough food, their tensions are rising, they're not going to be too friendly. So that's the only real hierarchy in devils. Outside of that, they sort of take a look at each other, bit of a posture up. Oh, you're bigger than me, and they'll back up. So these guys will have to be separated sometime soon. So within about 6 months, they're going to be absolutely vicious and crazy against one another. Reason being, we actually have quite a few males in here. Males are highly territorial. They'll only really allow females to exist in their territories. Male on male, yeah, they fight. Often the only time it will get brutal is around the breeding season. Breeding season to be a Tasmanian devil is absolutely brutal, unfriendly. You don't want to be a Tasmanian devil. So what does happen, guys, is February through March, females start to go through the estrous cycles. They go into heat. Devils have a fantastic sense of smell, being able to smell food around 3 kilometres away. So, you know, they literally all smell the female in the area. All the males converge on the female's scent. They all want to breed. So this is the time where they will have to fight over that female for the right to breed. Generally, the biggest, the baddest, the ugliest devil does win. And after that, we'll approach the female. That female generally will fight off 1 or 2 male devils.
Oh.
What she is doing there, she is ensuring that she's getting that biggest, baddest, ugliest devil. So, you know, fighting off 1 or 2, lets another one come back, smaller than the last, fights it off again. She's looking for those strong genes. Best breeder we've ever had here at the park was named Clive. Was missing 3/4 of his tail and 1 of his ears. So, you know, the uglier you are, the more attractive you are for the females in the devil world. So, the actual breeding isn't too nice. What does follow is basically female accepts the male, becomes a little bit submissive, allows that male to drag her down into a den. Even if that female has created the den, it's her own home, she is now a prisoner. Once she arrives, she's across that threshold, she is not allowed to leave. 7 to 8 days of just about continuous mating does follow. Each of those days, that female is building up her energy, her anger, her feistiness. She has to bite her way out if she is to get out. So that male does not want to let her out. She wants to get out because she wants to breed with other males. She can actually produce from 2 different fathers at the same time. So she wants to get out, mate with as many males as possible. He is not going to allow that to happen. He will chase her down, put her back down into the den, where are you going sort of scenario. And yeah, it isn't too friendly in terms of that breeding. But absolutely, all the breeding does seem to revolve around strong genes. So funny enough that they have been able to actually create this resistance against this contagious cancer out in the wild as well as in labs. So originally with this cancer, what was happening, what the main problem was, the devil's systems weren't actually recognising that it was something wrong, something harmful that could kill them. There was no response to the cancer. So usually what you see is sort of antibodies and that sort of stuff starting to form. Something's pushing back. So what are you doing? So yeah, usually something is fighting back, guys, and it just wasn't happening. So they came up with all these sort of trial vaccines, trying to get something that would work. There's been about 7 or so far. This is the only one that is actually getting a response. Not all devils, but around 95% of devils are starting to develop those antibodies. So their system's are actually fighting back against the cancer cells, which is a great outcome. They were actually hoping for a sort of complete cure, you know, miracle sort of thing, but it just didn't happen that way. So next best thing, put them into captivity, ensure that you do still have a population to draw from at the very least. So around 3,000 devils in these breeding programs you are seeing, so quite a few. When you compare that to roughly about 10,000 left out in the wild, it actually is quite a bit of their population. Bit of scent marking over there, guys. So female sort of rubbing around her bottom, bit of urination and that sort of stuff, leaving behind an odour and scent. But in terms of territories, they're quite nomadic. So yes, they will have a territory, but if something sort of bothers them, you know, there's a bigger devil around, they'll just move. So always moving around. So you might notice the white markings as well. Most devils do have them, but not all do. 16% of all devils are actually jet black. Rare cases that have been seen spotted, spots all across their bodies. Might have just spotted tail quolls or the eastern quolls. Same. So same patternings, which is pretty interesting.
They don't seem to be actually fighting one another. It's like
Yeah, it's pretty much just using their vocalizations, posturing up. You know, they will bite and harm one another, but it's sort of last case resort. You know, that's the last thing they want to do. They've learnt that, you know, they need their teeth, they need their jaws to survive. They need to be able to consume anything that comes their way. So when devils do actually fight, when it starts to get quite serious, you'll notice that the devils become a little bit submissive. They sort of turn themselves around. They do this like spinning thing. Don't know if you've seen Taz the Tasmanian Devil, the cartoon, where he sort of turns into a cyclone. That's where that comes from. They turn their rear end around, they sort of say bite that instead, and they sort of consume that meat that's in front of them. So yeah, they're sort of quite intelligent, you know, learn to feed off tides and things like that. When they put their babies down into a den, they've actually learnt to go towards humans because no other animals will. So, you know, there's these little things that they're actually quite intelligent with, but yeah, their brain size does limit them. So, you know, 2.5 times smaller than a raccoon. A raccoon is fairly intelligent, but yeah, they're definitely limited. So having those few sweat glands, they do overheat. You see this little youngster here going for a bit of a swim quickly. So, you know, get into the water where it's a bit cooler. They learnt to den, so you might have seen them pop out from under the log where it's a little bit cooler, more stable temperature. No biting, please. So with the actual birthing process as well, guys, there actually is 30 to 40 babies being born. They're about the same size of a grain of rice. So in the beginning, they start out very small, along with most other marsupials. So massive number of them. How are you going to look after that many babies? Simple answer is they don't. In that pouch, there is only 4 teats. There is a maximum of 4 that can survive. So it is absolutely a grueling, brutal selection process. So when first born, they are that tiny sort of grain of rice. They have 2 little front legs, tiny little jaws. They are formed enough to basically scamper their way down the birth canal, drop down into the pouch. When they arrive in that pouch, they run into that problem of the 4 teats. First 4 that make it there can clamp down. They cannot release, they can't share even if they wanted to. When first born, they actually shake very rapidly. They believe this is so they can push their way through the other devils and get there first. So they believe even from that young age, being that size of a grain of rice, they already have that sort of survival instincts that they have to get there first. They can't allow anyone else to feed. So coming from those 2 different fathers, there is a good chance that, yeah, quite good genetics. So you got stronger and weaker. So it absolutely would wean out a few of those weaker devils, which does limit that sort of inbreeding theory about the DFTD arising to, you know, not quite believable, but it certainly could happen. What are you smelling?
And if you were to see that there was a devil that was smaller than the others because it's getting